Radio, your station for up-to-the-minute news, intelligent, interactive, and engaging conversation. 96.9 FM. The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
And welcome back to Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, your station for fresh news, smart talk all day. It is Wednesday, the 13th of October, 2021, and you are on the clock with Erin Greene. On the clock, we engage organizations, institutions, social and cultural leaders, and ordinary people to better understand the impact of public policy, private sector development, and emerging social and consumer trends. On the clock, we have conversations that help us understand and navigate a rapidly changing Bahamas. To join today's show, and I hope you do, you can text us on the Guardian Radio text line at 422-GR96. That's 422-4796, and that's powered by BTC, standard text rate supply. You can also call us at 323-6232, 325-4316, or 325-4259. Remember, you can catch us on Cable Bahamas Channel 969 or Flow Channel 612. And we're streaming live audio and video on GuardianTalkRadio.com. Again, welcome to On the Clock with Erin Greene. Have you heard that song just now? That's Columbus Lied by the Mighty Sparrow. And I know some of y'all are saying, why you didn't play a Bahamian song about Columbus? It's because I didn't want to indict or, I didn't want to get any Bahamians hooked up. I didn't want the police thinking that somehow a Bahamian was involved, not a Bahamian at least, was involved with what happened over the weekend. That is not a Bahamian singing that song. So please, don't lock up anybody else. Or maybe we're going to have to. That's also a point of consideration. Well, good morning. As we start the show, let me tell you, my guest today is Mr. Suri, amateur historian, media personality, and social media blogger. Yesterday, I listened to Mr. C.A. Nuri and Dr. Chris Curry talk with Nahaja Black about the Christopher Columbus statue, why it should not be destroyed, whether Mr. Smith is a national hero, and the danger of letting acts like these go unchecked. Today, I've invited Mr. Nuri to try and convince me why we should not destroy the statue. We're going to get to that in a moment. A few quick, brief notices. First of all, I just want to ask Bahamian fast food establishments, why does it feel like you're committed to taking the fun, the fast, and even the food out of the dining experience? I'm just saying, I am. But this is maybe I should be eating healthier, or maybe I should be petitioning, I need to come talk to y'all and petition y'all to put some much healthier items on your menu that are worth the wait. Another important notice, there was a story in yesterday's Tribune business section about the ruling, the case dealing with a security officer and overtime pay. Well, let me tell y'all something. Like we can talk about Columbus today. And a lot of people are going to say, man, Erin, that's in the past. We are in the future. We got to look to the future and leave all these old things like enslavement and thing behind. But see, while some of us was here living this good life in the 21st century, some of our fellow Bahamians were living a life of enslavement in the security field, where for decades now, security officers have been forced to work beyond the hours prescribed by the Employment Act without overtime pay. And this particular case, one of the rulings. I didn't bring the paper today, but you got to look for it. And I'm going to have a fuller conversation with the Labor Department and maybe a legal representative about it, because I've been looking at this issue for a couple decades now. Did you know that security officers were being made to work 12-hour shifts without overtime pay? And I met some security officers who didn't have their own vehicle and were forced, because they couldn't move themselves at the end of their shift, they were forced to work a double, 24 hours at the same location because they didn't have their own vehicle, right? This is what we have been doing to Bahamians in the 21st century, right? People who we think, warrant this type of treatment or can't do any better. So take what you got. Anyway, one of the rulings in the case was that and nobody could sign up to not get overtime pay. Like, you can't sign away your rights. Anyway, that's what I think the ruling was. But I want to say to all the security officers out there guarding us, protecting us, taking care of people's properties, we appreciate you. We appreciate you. We appreciate the struggle that you've been going through just in an attempt to put money on the table. I just had to make a note of that. A second note, did you know that Alicia Wallace has been designated Her Majesty the Queen's Commonwealth Point of Light 196? The Points of Light Award recognizes outstanding individual volunteers, people who are making a change in their community. Alicia Wallace, representing the Bahamas, age 35, is an activist dedicated to promoting gender and LGBTQ plus rights in the Bahamas and championing women to fulfill their potential. Sarah Dixon, British High Commissioner to the Bahamas, said, "Congratulations to Alicia for this recognition of her voluntary work. Her activity makes a positive contribution towards greater equality, diversity, and tolerance in the Bahamas." I want to say big up, Alicia. National Heroes Day, we're putting you on the list. And sometimes, just like Vanessa Clark, big up Vanessa Clark all the time, the recognition comes from outside. That's what we're going to talk a bit about today, right? We'll talk a bit about that today. But I had to make that mention. Alicia has been a contributor to my show and to Shein platform, and is a contributor to development in the nation. Another quick note before we get going, I have to say this. Did you know that Roadmasters Running Club participated in the Boston Marathon, and all 39 participating club members completed the course? And I have to call these three names. The first, I want to say congratulations to Mr. Michael Cunningham, who placed first place finish in the Bahamas course, to Mr. Douglas Storr, and to Mr. Marcel Major. And one of these gentlemen, you'll see on the front line of The Guardian, is a patron of the Gladstone Road Farmers Market. And this gentleman, who would have taken second or third place, I think he took second place, would have been the victim of a hit-and-run accident roughly 2 years ago, where he was badly injured by a road user on Boxing Day morning, who was obviously still thinking there was a junkanoo. Anyway, this gentleman has recovered, right, and has run the Boston Marathon and placed second, I think, of the Bahamian participants. I want to say big up, my brethren. And whenever you all hear me talking about traffic, understand, I know people whose lives have been irrevocably changed due to recklessness and carelessness on the road. Ah, boy. Okay, so to the show and to my audience. Like I told you, I invited Mr. Nuri. Good morning, Mr. Nuri. Are you in the Zoom room yet?
I'm here. I'm sorry. Yes.
No, good. Like I said, I was listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black yesterday, and I got dead jealous because Mr. C.A. Nuri, Dr. Chris Curry, and Nahaja Black were having an awesome conversation about the Christopher Columbus statue and the event over the weekend where a gentleman attempted to destroy the statue. And so I invited Mr. Nuri here today. Yesterday, here's what they talked about, and I found it interesting. Whether the statue, or they talked about why it should not be destroyed, whether Mr. Smith is a national hero and the danger of letting acts like these go unchecked. So today, Mr. Nuri, I want you to convince me why we should not destroy the statue. But before we go there, I want to tell you a story. It's something that happened to me yesterday between the station and here. I saw three influential people in the store yesterday. The first two were Stephen Hanna and Cindy Mullins, both local comedians and political satirists and influencers in the Bahamas. The third person was Pat Ramming. I wanted to make sure Mr. Ramming had an opportunity to meet these two bright minds, and they the same. And in the exchange, Ramming left me with some real nuggets. And one of them was this: it's the government's job to create an environment where people can live their best lives. To paraphrase, not just to create an environment where people can make healthy and more effective decisions and choices, but also an environment where people can do what they know they ought to do when they know they ought to do it, without fear of retribution, victimization, abuse, or fear of detrimentally disadvantaging themselves. Well, yesterday was a rough day on the road. We noticed a lack of police presence at King Street, Duke Street, Blue Hill Road, Cumberland Street intersections. But later in the day, we were almost the victim of a head-on collision at Mackey and Shirley Street. A car overtook southbound traffic at Mackey, nearly ran into a car turning left on Red onto Shirley, and almost hit us head-on as we were approaching the intersection. So when I finally made it to Church and Shirley, we hit bumper-to-bumper traffic. And in the intersection on the other side, Church and Bay, was two vehicles that had collided along with hundreds of other vehicles making their way through the intersection to and past Pardusky Dock. Now, I'm going to stick this in here. If the government refuses to listen to engage the needs and desires, to interrogate and provide solutions for the people will do it themselves. So yesterday, after seeing the accident, I got out of the car and asked the people involved in the accident to help me direct traffic until the police arrived on the scene. Now, a lot of people are going to ask me, why was this necessary? I'm sure a lot of people asked me that on the road as they was driving past cussing. But I want to say this. Remember the car that forced its way through the intersection earlier? Well, what if it wasn't a driver fleeing the scene of a crime or cutting a movie, and was just a driver so frustrated with the backup that he just went through that he decided to force his way through the rest of the traffic? See, it was also boat day yesterday, and that's boat day after a long holiday weekend, which means that hundreds and hundreds of vehicles were attempting to get to Pardusky Dock to make deliveries and pick up goods and people from the mail boats. Necessary? Well, unless officers from the tourism unit decided to walk or ride their bicycles up to the Sidney Poitier Bridge, or the officers from PI or Pardusky stations walked or used their golf carts to get to the Sidney Poitier Bridge, the police were stuck in the same traffic we wanted them to clear and direct. But there's another reason. The traffic lights at the intersection have not been fully restored. You see, the drivers in the eastbound lane on Church Street could not see the traffic light at the northwestern side of the intersection. And the drivers on Bay Street in the northernmost lanes who were not paying attention to the lights at all could not see oncoming traffic from Church Street. You see, it was also important because adults are expected to adult, especially in the most frustrating situations. So the reason it was necessary for me to get out of my car and direct traffic is because sometimes a reminder of what we ought to do when we ought to do it. And most people, the vast majority of people, virtually all the people on the road, when they realized that somebody, some group of people were directing traffic, decided that they would obey those traffic controls as opposed to engage in the chaos that some Bahamians feel it is their right to cause around them. That's why I got out the car, because sometimes we just need a reminder of what we ought to do when we ought to do it. Now back to Columbus. I mean, I don't think we went very far from Columbus, but back to Columbus. Mr. Nuri.
Hey,
Hey, good morning. How
can you hear
doing?
me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear some
Good.
people in the background too. I hope they talking about South. How you do?
I'm doing well. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I know when the Haj is sending you a message and you're trying to same time
Yeah.
listening to you. I had one of those debacles just now.
That's okay, because I teach in the Hajj guess.
That's good.
All
I'm
right.
your guest now.
Right. So I want you to tell us a brief history of the statue before you convince me why we shouldn't destroy it.
Okay, let's talk about the statue by itself and not necessarily Columbus, because we already know the history of Columbus, and we conclude that Columbus is a monster, right? So there's no new narrative for Columbus. We understand who he is.
Mm-hmm.
But in about 1832, a little before then, a statue was commissioned to come to the Bahamas.
Mm-hmm.
It was done by Governor of the Bahamas at the time, James Carmichael Smith.
Okay.
From my basic research, I understand that a committee of colored folks, as a going away present to Carmichael Smith, gave or donated some money to the governor. He used that money to create right?
Mm-hmm.
And as he searched about trying to find the statue, he had he negotiated with a writer, and that writer name is Washington Irving.
Okay.
Washington Irving is a famous American author, and he influenced a sculptor named Garbin to create a Christopher Columbus statue.
Okay.
Right? And Washington Irving, he created a false narrative actually, using facts and fictitious information. One example of that is saying that many people thought that the world was flat, and Columbus was the only one who thought that the world was round. The fictitious narrative that the Caribs were actually cannibals, all of that he added into the Columbus narrative in order to be a bestseller. Columbus became a bestseller. The history of Columbus became a bestseller, and the world started saluting Columbus and saying that this guy was he faced all of these adversaries and still found a new world or discovered a new world and went back to Europe. So there was a proliferation of Columbus statues all around the world, right? So bringing it back home, the statue was erected or was planned to be erected in front of the House of Assembly. The white establishment at the time, the oligarchy, was upset. They were upset with the governor, one, because they call him a pro-African, pro-slave abolitionist, and put abolitionist in quotes, because he's not necessarily abolitionist, but he had sympathies for the Black populations in the Bahamas. So they said that if he put it in front of the House of Assembly, that they would have destroyed it. So he moved it to his mansion, which his mansion was the government house where it is now, and erected it there and put armed guards to protect the statue, right? Then the story, later, 60 years later, we see major tourist attraction. And the same people who were objecting to the statue realized that people from around the world who were very, very much promoting the Columbus era came to the Bahamas and saying that this is one of the places where you can actually find a Columbus statue. So it became prominent in that regard. And then as time go on, we call modern time, it became the most photographed site, monument, and tourist attraction in the Bahamas. It's been photographed for centuries. It's now 191 years old. And it has a reference to the Three Musketeers. Could you see that statue does not look like a typical Columbus? It played on Irving's adventurous outlook of Columbus, as saying that he was a swashbuckling privateer-ish man with sword and hat, and he was a fan of that era of the Three Musketeers. So again, the statue itself is unique. It's unique because of the sculptor who created. It was unique because of Washington Irving, who is the most renowned American writer in the history of the United States. Is unique to who Michael Smith is in terms of what he have done for colored and black people inside the Bahamas. Is unique for how long it has been in the Bahamas unbordered with. It's unique in terms of the history of it being in the Bahamas and all of the turmoil it caused. It survived hurricanes. It survived the Great Depression. It survived insurrection and all of that in the Bahamas to be right there today. And to see someone out of the blue, before government has made a decision on whether they plan to move it, to come and butcher it, to hack it, to have violence bestowed upon it, and knowing that there's a current debate going on about where and if we should secure and put it in a different area is very unfortunate. It takes the value from it. And mind you, it creates a new narrative for the statue itself, because the statue has its own legacy, and this has now added to the legacy. So I don't want to diminish that.
All right.
So I want to say that the statue itself has a story. Mm-hmm. That story, it belongs to the Bahamas. And for that alone, the statue needs to be preserved for the next generation. So when we tell the story of Columbus, we also tell the story of Carmichael. We also tell the stories of the Negroes and the colored people of that era. We also tell the story of the statue itself. And this is why I believe that the statue must be maintained and that secured in a safe spot, especially in the future when we move ourselves from these colonial vestiges of having a queen representative of the Bahamas, and the government house becomes that spot where it becomes a museum, where we bring all of these monuments there. And this is the penultimate goal for all of that, actually.
Okay, so
closing down of government house altogether.
All right? So
and bringing these statues there.
Okay, to two government house and using government house as the memorial.
And using government house for...
Oh, that's one interesting idea. Okay, stick a pin there because the history is awesome. And so I want to respond to your somewhat convincing points. The statue itself is the history of the statue itself is separate from Columbus and the history of Columbus. And so attaching the same energy to the statue may not serve us well. And I want to say the historic value and the stories that can be told outside of Columbus and the lives attached, and then the lives attached to the statue, right? So I'm feeling that. But here's what came up for me while you were talking. I realized that Columbus was actually a black man.
And see,
hold on,
we must appreciate that color was different before then. There was no such thing as a black man in Columbus era.
Right, I'm going to argue, I'm going to argue that's not necessarily true, that this is the era of the creation of these terms, because I just realized Christopher Columbus was a criminal. He's a hustler, a criminal. He's trying to do a thing outside of the mainstream system. He's trying to get a bly. He convinced this woman to give him some boats to go make this run and see if he could find something, and they treat him bad, They treat him bad because prison ain't fun for nobody, no matter what color you are. Then apparently after his first trip, they lock him up right away when he hit the shores because they're horrified by what he did. And I realized that they treated Christopher Columbus like he was a black man all the way back then. And maybe that's why we shouldn't destroy his statue, because these things that we attribute to him and call him a monster, maybe he, just like some of us Africans in the 21st century, are not really monsters, but victims to systems that are far larger than ourselves.
I hear you, and I want to say something before I answer that.
Okay.
When I was younger, and cowboys and Indians and cowboy Western shows was the most popular show. That's when TV first come out, right?
Uh-huh.
And all through my life, I always sided with the cowboys. I said the Indians were the ones who always attacking the villages, right? Mm-hmm. They were the evil ones, not knowing that Europeans were invasive species. They settled on America, stole these people's land, kidnapped their women, and do all these vile things. And in the movies, they projected the Indians as the evil one.
Right.
And you'll see that the black cowboy is always also shooting at the Indians and saying that they are the evil ones because they take on the mantra that they wanted to be a part of white society. But in truth, we as black people were the Indians also kidnapped and brought to America. So I want to say that history, depending on who tells the story, they in fact will be determine who will be the evil one.
Right. Cecil, hold on. I got a caller.
I'm sorry.
Hold on. I got a caller, and then I got to go to a break. So let's sort of sum that up right there, because in the show yesterday, you said that you thought that Black Bear should be, maybe Black Bear statue should go there.
Yes.
And I'm agreeing with you because pirates expelled, commerce restored is great until you realize that commerce was the transatlantic slave trade and chattel slavery. But I got to get to this caller before we interrogate that. Caller, you're on the clock.
Golly days, Dr. Univoice along with you, Erin, Pretty Eye Greene.
Good morning, Bremen. How you do?
I'm holding thing going. Several things I want to say. First, I want to say I used to like the Indians because their women were pretty.
That's what? Look here. Okay, go on. Go on. I see your bias. Go on.
Right. So, also, what I want to ask you, right, was that Hannah, the triple jump, Steve Hannah, the triple jump in which you are saying in the store?
No, look here. But Stephen Hannah if he could triple jump into my heart, I would accept it. No, this is the young Stephen Hannah comedian influencer.
Because of my time, right?
Yeah.
When are you going to have open line?
I'm going to have open line tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay,
I got one more caller. Quick caller, you're on the clock. You got 30 seconds.
Good morning, Erin. Good morning, Mr. Murray.
Good morning.
But history is written by the victors.
Yes.
But what I notice about this cancel culture thing is that ignorance and emotionalism is a terrible combination.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that we have this conversation about the statue because now we can talk about what exactly we need to put in our history books so that the future generations can know exactly what our past was. I like to listen.
Thank you very, very much. We're going to go to a break. And Cecil, when we get back, you were going into some of the options and ideas that have been proposed for the monuments, but not just that, for how we can handle history in a way that prevents us from continually re-traumatizing ourselves. Stay tuned to the show. We'll be back after this break. 96.9 FM.
I've been representing all my life. I'm getting ready to make it count this time. Census 2021 for your family line. You better get ready. It's about that time. So tell mama to be ready. Tell it to the whole family. The one that don't forward to. The count depends on you. So tell Ted to go tell the law. Mark it down on your calendar. Census 2021. This one's for everyone.
The Central Bank of the Bahamas invites students in grades 4 through 12 to compete in the Get Money Smart Bahamas video essay competition. Students must produce a 3 to 5 minute essay sharing their views on the following topic. The Bahamian economy is an ideal model for digital financial services. Get a parent or guardian permission to share the link to your essay with us on social media and have your entry judged for cash prizes in either the primary school division, junior high, or senior high school category. Essay submissions must be received by October. For more information, visit GetMoneySmartBahamas.com or see our post on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Like what you're hearing on the show? Want to support the conversation? Sponsor On the Clock today. Call Janet Lees at 302-2304. That's 302-2304. Be the solution. Sponsor On the Clock with Erin Greene, where she dissects, we discuss, and you decide.
Good morning and welcome back to Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. You are on the clock with Erin Greene and my guest today, Mr. Cecil Nuri. Good morning, Mr. Nuri.
Hey, Erin. It's good to be on the show as usual.
Thank you. It's good to have you on the show. Like I said, I wish I could have jumped into that conversation yesterday So I had mentioned as in proposals offered to relocate the monuments, not just physically, like relocate them from Government House to maybe a Heroes Park at Botanical Gardens, but also to relocate them sort of psychologically, right? To relocate them in our psyche and the collective consciousness, because they don't just that statue is not at Government House for no reason. There's a reason why it's there. The location is prominent, and it sort of lords over it. It watches over the harbor, and it watches over the center of politics and government, right? It's like watching over Central Bank, and it watching over town. What are some of the proposals? Let me see if I could knock them down.
First, I would like to say that we only have three, we have no monuments. Let's start off with that. We have no monuments under the Antiquities Act. All monuments must be gazetted. And since the Antiquities Act has been passed, we have had no monuments in the Bahamas that has gone through that. So when you think of monuments in the Bahamas, we have none, despite there being Columbus and Queen Victoria and Woodes Rogers statues, even
look at the irony.
Milo Butler. As a monument protected by the Antiquities, it doesn't exist.
Look at the ancestors, Cecil. I mean, sorry, we're on opposite sides. I'm only kidding. We're debating. You convincing me why we shouldn't just destroy it entirely.
Okay, and no, I just want to say that.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. What I'm saying is, imagine that. Here I am thinking this guy, Mr. Smith, is going to go to jail for a long time for destroying a historic monument, but you're saying it's not even registered under the act.
No, so it's not a historic monument, despite we lax as a people. We're very lax.
Yeah.
We start things and never follow through.
Well, listen, I tell you what, though, I can protest if Frank Watson Boulevard become a monument before anything else. I can protest. But
it might just happen. Ideas for years, decades, maybe even up to 20 odd years, right? Mm-hmm. We've been talking about relocating Columbus statue and Queen Victoria statue, and also talking about erecting more modern statues.
Right.
It's a dialogue that is continuous, and you see that there's petitions. There's a current petition online that you can go and sign right now, asking the government to move Christopher Columbus statue.
But listen, I don't know if I believe in petitions in the Bahamian system. That's like begging my mommy to stop beating me. I just don't know if they go away.
Yes, and I understand that, and even though I'm smiling. But see, there hasn't been any clear narrative as to what should happen. This has been the most discussion since the destruction of the Columbus statue, or memeing of the Columbus statue, that we haven't ideas put forward as to what should physically happen. And I know that even Chris Curry has even put forward having a garden of remembrance and move things, but hasn't moved any further of that. It's also being petitioned that Government House becomes that monument or that because we are trying to move away from that colonial era. And we know that Government House itself is an affront to what Bahamians see themselves as. So I believe this is one of the reasons why there was a delay in moving Columbus, as that will be the site eventually where these statues will more likely move to, right? So why move it if you plan to have that as the site in a couple of years, right? But that's a different debate.
Look here.
Now the issue is, does the statue itself have any value to tourism and then by extension to the Bahamian people?
Okay, pause.
Right? So
two things. That's a very important question. That may require a whole show. Because first of all, I have to flip it. Did you mean to say what value does it have to the Bahamian people and by extension tourism? Or you mean to say the value to tourism and by extension the Bahamian people?
But see, we gotta understand that Bahamians pass the statue and don't even notice that it's there. Right? I drive past Government House and forget that I even passed Government House because it doesn't mean anything to me. The statue itself doesn't mean anything to me. The taxi that passes, if you drive behind that taxi, you will have to have that delay because they stop in to take a picture of the Columbus. Because few people know that Columbus actually visited the Bahamas and that the Bahamas is the gateway.
And I blame George Bush Jr. for that. I was there in front of the TV when he said that. Columbus, the first landfall was the U.S. Listen, Cecil, I got some calls and I got some texts. Let's get to the phone line, if you don't mind. Caller, you're on the clock.
Good morning, Erin Greene. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm okay. Good morning, Mr. Neary. Erin Greene.
Yes.
I would like to honor you this morning. May I call you the vulnerable Erin Greene or the venerable Erin Greene?
Don't call me vulnerable, buddy.
Yeah,
There's all them raccoons in the bush next to my house waiting to hear.
Okay.
Morning.
Yeah, morning. Hey, you're talking about a garden to put these statues in, Mr. Neary, eh?
Yes.
A historical garden. Yeah, I got a little historical sea garden. How about underwater?
Listen, okay.
Where the fish and the corals are, and the tourists can go down and they spend big bucks to do that, because you don't have any and everybody that rob somebody when they pass Columbus statue. They be underwater. They got to go back on the boat.
Thank you so
The
much.
problem with that is
also,
I can't swim, and I want to go past it too.
Okay,
Yeah,
quickly.
you put all you have to put a life vest on, but in closing, right?
Yeah.
The appropriate statue to be at Government House was one of our former governors. The statue is at Sheridan with the swashbuckling sword of Blackbeard. Let's put that there, man, and then you really see the tourists come to see what's going on in this country. Because Blackbeard was the governor for 2 years, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and that's a part of our history, right? And the statue is right there. They sell it to the Chinese, though. See me get it from the Chinese now.
Thank you very much. And imagine the capacity of our people when they realize the beautifulness of being the descendants of enslaved people and pirates. Anyway, caller, you're on the clock.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. How you do?
I'm good. I'm glad that this discussion is continuing, because, I see in the debate, and I'm grateful, and I'm not for the fact that the way the act was happened,
Yeah.
the way that happened, but that it happened. And it brought, light to this issue, because it bothered me for years.
Yes, ma'am.
I do not like the idea.
Mm-hmm.
We have a history. We have Bahamian men, greats, who have died,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
We have a Bahamian, the first Bahamian Governor General, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that we would have, that's Government House, where the Governor General resides? Why should we have Christopher Columbus standing up there posing in our white suit?
I'm telling you. Well, I can tell you why. Because
No, but they need
Yes.
to, I don't have a problem. I'm not saying destroy him.
right.
Because
Right.
he serves a place in history. He keeps saying about this tour out, give our children something to aim for. Give our children, yes, we can slow down now when we pass there after a proper statue has been erected of Samuel Buck. And point and say that is the first governor, and tell about his history, tell about his struggles, right?
Mm-hmm.
The tourists can stop and hear the story as well, and they can go to the fall or wherever they're going to place
Yes, ma'am.
Columbus, and deal with that, so we can enrich our history, not cut it short and say because of this man he has to stay. I don't care how many years he was there, but don't make us feel try to make us feel guilty because we don't want him there.
Absolutely. I have to go.
Thank
Thank
you.
so
Thank you.
much. And I love that point. Don't make us feel guilty because we don't want him there. Callers, I got 30 seconds for you. Caller, you're on the clock.
Yes, good morning, Erin Greene.
Hey, good morning. How you do?
Yeah, right, just a quick input. Your scenery, you're scared of the water, just submerge yourself and relax it. And there's no such thing as can't. I wanted to put this in. A lot of people mightn't be mindful of the fact. I've read a book called The Civilization of Spain. And so what happens is, when the Vikings invaded North Africa, they took a lot of Africans back as captives. So the presence of black Africans was in Europe from maybe like the 1st century and even like to the 3rd century, they noticed the presence of the black Africans. And so what happens is, the Moors actually ruled Spain for about 6 years. Why the Europeans were so interested in Africa was because they learned from these people that were in Europe about the richness, and they heard about Africa, and Africa always intrigued them. It's not because of their knowledge. They learned about Africa from us. So yes, I'm telling you, Dr. Chris Curry admitted that Columbus learned his navigational skills from the Moors. And so this is because they knew we were traveling to America before them. We were making transatlantic voyages. But this is why, see, I'm not worried about the statue. What I'm worrying is about teaching our real history.
Right.
It's not the fact that we're not teaching it. Nobody taught me this. I looked for this because I heard about it, and
Yep, just like everything in the Bahamas.
I had a great Jamaican history teacher. Have a good day.
Right, thank you. To the callers on the line, I need you to hold the line if you can. I got to go to a break, and I got a couple more questions from Mr. Neary, and I got 85 texts. So, we got a break there, sir? We will be right back. Stay tuned to Guardian Radio 96.9 FM.
it count this time. Census 2021 for your family line. You better get ready. It's about that time. So tell mama to be ready. Tell it to the whole family. Go out the top forward too. The count depends on you. So tell Ted to go tell below. Mark it down on your calendar. Census 2021. This one's for everyone.
Here we go. J.S. Johnson Insurance Agents are the best. Reliable service, we've been on the scene. J.S. Johnson Insurance has the test. You'll always cover me. J.S. Johnson Insurance, peace of mind.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
Good morning and welcome back to On the Clock with Erin Greene on Guardian Radio. To my callers, hold the line. I'm going to see if I can fit you in. Another text here says there are many breaches at security firms. The Department of Labor needs to shine a very bright light on all of them. I don't hold out hope for that because the conditions have been going on too long for someone in authority not to know. The pressure will have to come from international exposure of their humanitarian abuses together with the owners' names and their abuses. This is one of the biggest issues in the country. I've been very sensitive about it because the people who are being taken advantage of are desperate for work. My thing is this: if you look at the origin of the industry in the country and who has started the first security firms, we get a sense of why this has been allowed to languish this way. Another text says, Erin, what is taught in our schools regarding Christopher Columbus? Well, we see that now in modern history, it's changing a bit, but in the 70s, I think yesterday, somebody indicated that they were told in the 70s that they were taught that Christopher Columbus was a hero. A hero. Another text, great show as usual. He was not black, but he has black tendencies like Tiffin. No, you see, race is a construct. And at the time when the construct of race was created, a small group of Europeans designated themselves as white and everybody else as black. The opposite of white, for the purposes of their dastardly hierarchical power system, right? And so the irony is that at the time, it is possible that while he may not have been identified as black today, may have been identified as a black man back then. Another text, great show as usual. They should put Blackbeard's statue in Kemp Road because those Kemp Road people display a lot of Blackbeard's attributes. Now listen, I think that you were trying to be disgusting, texter, but I'm going to show you a vibe. They do, and it's a good thing, but don't worry about it. Big up Kemp Road people. Another text, leave a nice story, Erin. However, we can't compare outlook today on the past and history, ways of doing things. Back then, it was an era of exploration and conquest for the bigger countries to gain territories. That was the day of the world back then. Of course, today it looks horrific, but back then, even the weaponry used in war was knives, axes, hatchets, etc. was barbaric, but a review of history has to be in context of the period of time back then. Dear texter, I am not a historian, but I'm going to tell you this, not today. Not today. Back then it wasn't that bad. No, it was bad back then. The difference was that black people couldn't say nothing about it back then. That was the only difference. Everybody knew it was horrible. Apparently even Christopher Columbus was put in jail when he arrived back after his first or second voyage for committing atrocities on the Grand Sea. No, sir. And to the texter previously, this is some of the stuff that's being taught. Another text, that same texter says, leave our statues and busts in Government House alone. It's our history. I want to read this quote from Dr. Curry, and I'm sure I'm paraphrasing it slightly. But he said, the difference between the past and history. The past is what happened, is put it and contextualized, and can and does change as new artifacts, evidence, and contexts are found or arise. It is our history, and we get to contextualize it however we want. Another text, move it, put it in the museum and put Arawak statues there. I say put it in the ocean so our ancestors that were either forced off of ships and decided to make the fateful journey back to the heavens via the ocean can Spend some time with Christopher. Another text. Good morning, Miss Greene. Take the Tower of London or all places in England out of England. There would be no place for the person to visit Parliament. To visit the Parliament in the Bahamas is the oldest part of the world. Leave Columbus and Queen Victoria there. Make money off of it. But the question is, who makes money off of it? Who will benefit? Does the individual and collective average Bahamian, right? Does the average Bahamian individually and collectively benefit sufficiently from tourism, heritage tourism, and the orange economy to warrant leaving that statue and others in places of pride? The question, another quick text. Next step for Columbus statue should be a national museum ASAP. And when will this be? When? Well, listen, no. We need a national museum ASAP. If there's enough space, Christopher could get in on the vibe. Another text. Erin, imagine Government House grounds as Nassau's Central Park. It would be lovely. But imagine if we do some exploration and find out if those tunnels are still functional. And then Government House grounds becomes something even more fantastical. Last text, I don't want nothing but Tiffin when white... Okay, I don't understand. I really don't understand the text. I don't have enough time to interpret it. I am sorry, texter. To my last caller, you're on the clock. You got 30 seconds.
Erin Greene.
Good morning. Blessings.
Well, you got to continue this tomorrow, but let me say this, though.
Yes.
History is a bunch of pieces. And when we break it down, we got to break it down to us. This Christopher Columbus thing, it's break down into a bunch of pieces. It was given to us, as a gift decades ago. And we got to break it down. You mentioned Latino, though. Latino, it's black.
Yes, Latin America. Right. Yes.
I want you to tell Bahamians that, because when some Bahamians see these brown-skinned, long-haired people, they think they're white.
Yes.
There's no white in Latino. If you would tell a Latino they white, they would insult you.
Yes, this is a touch, and it's a very complicated. Look here, it's a very.
You have a lot of education. You have a lot of education. You got a lot of educated people.
Yeah, man, we do. We get a lot.
It happened all that. Even when they see Indians.
But listen, I gotta go. I'm so sorry. We can do. Yeah, we definitely talk about it tomorrow. I gotta let Cecil close out the show. Cecil, you got 10 more words to convince me. Mr. Nuri, you gone?
What do we want for the national narrative? What do we want to include within us? You'd like to make right? And what do we want to have the world mark our manner as? Will Columbus be a part of our narrative? Will Victoria be a part of our narrative? Will Woods Rogers be a part of our narrative? Will Blackbeard be a part of our narrative? Will Pompey be a part of our narrative? And we need to have a wholesome story that when people come to the Bahamas, they have places to touch, feel, and share in the story and say, well, I see it. I believe it. I understand the story, and I believe that we need to remember that whilst we consider breaking down statues.
All right. I got to go. I'm all out of time. Mr. Levon Miller and Unleash has just walked into the building. So we're going to continue this conversation tomorrow. Keep noting down your suggestions, your feelings. We're going to keep talking about it. I got to go. It's Erin Greene. We've been on the clock. Have a great day and stay tuned to 96.9 FM.